We are now recording, and I believe we are ready to get started this morning. Do we have anybody new joining us today? I don't believe so. Okay, so first of all, just quickly, first of all, as always, like to thank our sponsors, Care First Health Plan, Karen Ziegler, Consulting Services, Valley Telecom, Khajiit, and Triad Wireless. So I really appreciate their support. And then I want to talk, today is going to be a different kind of an agenda. Some of you who were on our meeting a few weeks ago, we talked about some change-ups to the format of our meetings, and that we thought it wasn't necessary to do full updates every week, and that maybe going to every other week and then having some kind of dialogue program, presentations, and so forth in between. So today we're going to start that. But I do want to, so actually let me come back to that and just talk about briefly what that's going to look like, and then we'll get into more detail about it. But today we're going to be talking about countywide planning for broadband and digital inclusion. And that doesn't necessarily mean BEAD, but looking at broadband even going on into the future. And so I've invited three people from three different counties who are doing a great job in developing plans. That's Michelle Simon, who's director of the Office of Digital Inclusion for Pima County, PJ Way, Yuma County Broadband Program Manager, and Joy Whiting, who we're glad to have back, Apache County School Superintendent. And so here's what we're going to do, and I'll go through this again in a little while. But what I want them to talk about, when I spoke to them about participating today, I didn't want them to go into details about their plans. Some we've heard and so forth, but I was more interested in talking about what's the processes, what's the issues in developing a county plan. So I'm going to ask them to talk about things like what were the wins in your sales? What made it possible for things to happen for you? What were the rough seas you encountered? What's your path forward? What's next? And what should Arizona do to help you and others with implementation of your plan? So that's going to kind of be the discussion. But but we're going to do an interactive kind of thing. So we're not going to. I've asked them. I told them we don't need PowerPoint presentations and all that sort of stuff. That we're going to try and keep this fairly informal and for you all to be able to contribute, ask questions, and so forth. The only thing I'll ask is that if you have something to comment to please raise your hand. And so I'll go over that some more in just a little while, but I kind of wanted you to know what was happening with the agenda today. So with that, some of the future programs that we're looking at is municipal networks. What is a municipal network? What are the pros and cons, different models, and so forth. Telehealth, workforce, sustainability, which I think is an important issue, low cost options, and maybe others. So I'm open to any hearing from any of you about any thoughts you might have. So with that in mind, we're going to do some quick updates today from the broadband office. Nicole, if you have anything, I don't know if Judy Soltrip is on the line yet or is joining us today. And then Brenna, you may have some updates on what's happening with ACP. And then if there's any other quick updates and announcements, and then we're going to get into the program. So I hope that's acceptable with everybody. If after we do that we have some time for additional updates, then we will do that. So I hope that meets your expectations for today. Any questions or comments about that? Okay, so with that, Erin, you're on with Broadband Office. Any quick updates?
Very, very briefly. First of all, hello. If we didn't already talk about cats and dogs, my name is Erin Lorandos. I am the Digital Equity Program Manager with the Arizona Commerce Authority. A couple of super really quick updates. In case you have somehow been just not listening to anything we've said for the last 2 months, we're still in the middle of the challenge process. The challenge, the window to submit challenges, if you are an eligible entity to submit them, is
Excuse me just a second. We're
yeah,
getting feedback from somebody.
happening.
So Teresa, is that you that we're getting feedback? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No worries at all. So the window to submit challenges will close at 11:59 p.m. on the 14th. You can access all of the relevant documentation and examples of evidence and all of that sort of thing on our website. And I'll drop some links here when I'm done talking. And then, you know, for the ISP friends in the room, just as a reminder that if there are challenges, you know, that you need to respond to, you do have that 14 days or 15 days, pardon me, to respond. So the period for that then will end the end of the month, just in case there are last minute challenges. And then we'll move on to next steps. Oh, Kelly, you're amazing. Thank you so much for dropping that. Appreciate you. In digital equity news, not a lot to report. We are still working on our application for the capacity grants funding from NTIA. It is not due until the 28th of this month, so we are still planning to submit our application ahead of that schedule. And then once we do that, we'll be able to share more about you know, what we are submitting for, and you know, hopefully we'll get approved for. And I think that it'll fit very well into today's conversation. So I really appreciate what you're doing with the local plans. And I think that's about it. Oh, I don't want to forget this. Kelly, seeing your name made me think of it again, unless you'd like to talk about it. We are going out on the road again tomorrow. We're going to be down in Bisbee. We're going to be presenting our you know, kind of updates as we've been going around the state. So many folks in this room have kind of already heard one version of it, but if you are in the Bisbee area, we encourage you to come see us. We will be at the Copper Queen Library from 11:30 to 12:30. And we look forward to seeing anyone in that part of the state. And then, of course, we're still continuing around on our tour everywhere else. If you haven't talked to Kelly and you're a person who can help us figure out where to go, I'm sure she would love to hear from you. I know she's had conversations with lots of folks in the space already, but just wanted to throw that out there as well. Any questions, comments, concerns, cat
Well,
pictures?
I think Kelly has an announcement, don't you, Kelly, about your newsletter?
Yes, thank you, Steve. My name is Kelly. I am with the Arizona Commerce Authority. I get to work with Erin in the broadband office. Our newsletter did go out on Tuesday. I think it went out. And as with everything, there are kinks. So if you did not get that newsletter and you believe you should have, please let me know. I will forward it to you. And then I am trying to work some magic on the back end to make sure that our list is getting cleaned up and fixed. So just ask for your patience while I work through that. I have my list of people to send it to, and I will make sure that until we get that fixed, you will get it from me as a forward. Please don't take that personally. So newsletter went out Tuesday, and then Erin did share about Bisbee. We are hoping at the end of the month to be in Santa Cruz County. I am working with a few contacts there. We've got a few arrangements in process, which is great. I'm really excited about that. And hopefully, fingers crossed, that does come through. But I did want to say thank you to a number of people who participate in this call, because they are the ones who helped me get in contact with Santa Cruz County people to make those arrangements. So thank you very much to people in this call. Lots of great information and great connections, and I'm really appreciative.
Okay. Anything else from the broadband office? Nicole, do you have any quick updates from NTIA?
Hey, I know I'm Nicole Umaim. I'm the Federal Program Officer for Arizona with NTIA. I believe you shared some updates on my behalf last week, so nothing new from there, but in the spirit of the challenge process. And for those of you who are curious in following along for other states, I'm going to go ahead and share the link that will direct you to other state portals, whether they're open or closed, as well as their 5-year plans and their initial proposals. But yeah, I'm excited to listen today to this county roundup.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Nicole. Any questions for Nicole? Judy, I don't think you're online. Brenna, I believe you're online. Do you have any quick updates about ACP?
Hey everyone, yeah, this is Brenna. There's been some activity over the past couple of days at the federal level. There was an amendment
Excuse
filed.
me, Brenna, can you introduce yourself quickly, please?
Oh, sure, sorry. My name is Brenna Leeser. I'm the Tech Policy Counsel with Common Sense. So focusing on broadband in that capacity. But yeah, at the federal level with ACP, there was an amendment filed yesterday or 2 days ago, time is flying, to provide $6 billion to extend the program. It had some additional changes to the program, making it the eligibility criteria closer to Lifeline, included funding for rip and replace to get some Republicans on board. And that's an amendment for the FAA bill that's actually due to expire on the end of this week. There's been some back and forth about what amendments can and can't be included. Leadership wants all non-germane amendments excluded from the FAA just to get it passed. But lots of people have their thing that they want attached to it, since this is kind of the last train out of the station before the end of the year. So no movement really on if that'll get passed or included in the final FAA bill. The FAA bill has an extension because congressional leaders don't think it's going to get passed this week. The House passed that last night, and the Senate also has a lot of opinions on things that should be included in there too. So TBD. But that's kind of our last hope, I guess, at this point for getting ACP money included in this legislation.
The drama continues, huh?
Yes, exactly. Never a dull moment in DC.
Brenna, Mark Goldstein. So the discharge petition doesn't look like it can get its critical mass.
That's the last that I heard, although there was a lot of support for, if I'm remembering correctly, this is Clark's bill for the extension. The discharge petition, I haven't heard of any additional movement on it. I think the complication with it is that Republicans would have to like buck their own leadership essentially. So even though the program is very popular and there's lots of co-sponsors on both sides of the aisle and in both chambers, I haven't heard of any movement on it recently.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brenna, when you talk about the FAA bill, are you talking about the Federal Aviation Administration? Is that what that refers to?
Yes, sorry. Please interject if any of this is not on top of your guys' radar. Yeah, it's the FAA bill, to reauthorize the administration's authorities, but because it's the last train out of the station, so to say, before end of the year, even though it's only May, but it's the last major bill that's going to be passed this session before the election and all that stuff. Everyone kind of is trying to get their thing attached to it.
There's nothing to do with the FAA, but they stick it in there because it's the last major bill of the.
Exactly, which is why there's a lot of fights about like non-germane amendments, like non-germane being like not related. So there's some things that people want to get attached. Like, I mean, I'm over in Virginia and our senators are really bent out of shape about like changes to the Reagan airport, about the like capacity of Reagan airports. That's a little bit more related, but there's lots of different amendments that people are trying to get tacked on there. Same with the like kids online safety and privacy acts. There's everything is trying to get attached to this. So we'll see if anything does in the end. But
Okay.
The rip and replace also, Brenna, right?
Rip and replace.
Yes, funding for replacing the Chinese equipment. That's another important thing, because if we don't have funding, we can't rip or replace any of those, and it won't be functional our
Yeah,
won't be
I-
functional. So again, that's attached to this one. Lots of little, amendments being attached to the FAA bill because
Yeah.
it's a must pass.
at least with it's Senator Vance that is kind of leading the charge on this most recent ACP amendment. They've included $3 billion for rip and replace in that, trying to get additional people with different priorities to support it. So in addition to that, changing the criteria for the program, trying to get additional support. But I'm not sure if there's been any movement on it since I last checked. But
Okay, any other questions or comments for Brennan or ACP before we move on? Okay, are there any other quick and important updates or announcements that anybody needs to speak about?
Steve, I'm just putting a survey.
Okay, are you there,
Sorry,
Mala?
Steve.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
just putting a survey in the chat. This is an important annual survey which is coming to a close in a couple of weeks, and it is for schools and libraries or any stakeholders who are involved with E-rate to take it. This is an opportunity, of course, to make your voice heard, and it does make its way. All the recommendations make their way to FCC. It's done by Funds for Learning, and the survey link is in the chat. I won't go further on it. You can click on it. You can see. If you just want to see what the survey is like, some of you who may not be actively involved in E-rate, you can fill the survey to the very end, and you do have to fill it to go to the next page or the next page, but you don't have to submit it. So your data will not mess up the final data that Funds for Learning is collecting, but it gives you an idea about the trends, and more of these are available online on Funds for Learning. I'll put that link too in the chat once I'm done talking, for you to see how folks have answered earlier surveys. Thank you.
Okay. So Sandeep, I see you joined. Do you have anything you want to share? We've heard briefly from Kelly about the newsletter and from Aaron, quick digital equity updates. Do you have anything else that you'd like to contribute?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sandy Baumig, State Broadband Director at Arizona Commerce Authority. I don't have anything particular, Steve. Erin already mentioned about the challenge process. This week is the last week. We have 2 more days next week. We're currently accepting and rerouting challenge to the local government and the ISPs. So last chance before someone missed the opportunity to correct the map. So if you're a local government, I would highly encourage you to register. And if you're an ISP, definitely register to see if there was a challenge against your ISP. So that's about it, Steve, and very excited to hear from our local government stakeholder in the next session.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sandeep. Glad to have you as always. And so we're ready to move on to the program. And again, just as a reminder, and then we're going to change the update here. But so again, we have 3 people who are going to be key to our panel today. Michelle Simon, Director of the Office of Digital Inclusion for Pima County, PJ Way, Yuma County Broadband Program Manager, and Joy Whiting, Apache County School Superintendent. And again, we're going to be focused not in a lot of detail about their plans, but more on the process, what they've gone through, what are the good, the bad, as I mentioned, what's the wins in their sales, what kind of rough seas have they run into, what's their path forward, and what else do they need to help with implementation of their plan. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to experiment because I've never done this before, but I believe that I can spotlight Michelle, and I can spotlight PJ, and I can, as soon as I find her, where'd she go? There's Joy and Joy. Oh, okay. So there's our gang. Yeah. All righty. So so you guys kind of heard, and this is kind of consistent, I think, with what I talked with you guys about. We really want to hear, if you want to just do a quickie about what you're doing in your county, but talk more about what's the challenges, what's the processes, what have you run into, what what's the good things? I know some of you've had money and have been able to hire consultants, and some don't, and so want to hear about kind of what those issues and those challenges are. And again, I want to keep this relatively informal, rather than just having presentations. So with that, who wants to go first? Michelle?
Sure, you always wrote me in. So
Okay,
Michelle
Michelle,
Simon, I
I'm
am
sorry,
the director of the Office of Digital Inclusion for Pima County. I'm going to say it before Steve says, don't forget to tell you who I am.
Okay, and Michelle, before you do that, again, just to remind you about your NTIA presentation coming up.
Absolutely. I will put the link in the chat for everyone. So thanks so much for asking me to participate this morning, Steve. Very excited to talk about how we did our planning process. Connect Pima, which is the county's digital infrastructure and inclusion action plan. That's like a really big mouthful. It was what started us down the path of the work that we're doing. We started as a task force, okay, and initially with a steering committee. So the steering committee were all individuals that were voluntold that they had to participate in this process by the county administrator at the time in order for us to figure out the best way forward. That steering committee was put together in July, and we figured out how to engage the community together. And so we created the actual task force with community members in August of 2021. And that process, we used a lot of research, a lot of best practices about strategic planning, including how to create SMART goals. Okay. And we broke it up into the 3 things that if you're looking at and this was from a county perspective. Okay. And so we were fortunate enough that the National Association of Counties had just put out a broadband report about what it was that counties should be doing for digital inclusion, to build digital equity and inclusion. And those 3 things were the deployment of broadband infrastructure, implementation of digital literacy initiatives, and increased access to devices, tools, and resources. So we created 3 committees. And those committees focused on those efforts, focused on those goals, and creating the objectives that go underneath those. We did training up front so that we have, yes, I'll put the link to all the things I talk about in the chat. We did a training up front so everyone understood what we were talking about with a strategic plan, what a vision is. The vision is if you are 100% successful in what it is you're trying to do, that's your vision. Okay. And then what the mission is, that's the roadmap, right? And objectives are how we're getting to achieving those goals. And everything had to be timely and measurable and realistic. And, so those were all things that we worked on together. And it is important to have individuals from the community participate in this process because you don't know what you don't know. And I think that was the best thing about our process was how many people came to the table to give their perspective, to give their input. How did we get them to come to the table? We reached out to all of the community helping organizations. Cindy, a lot of you on this call participated. Cindy, Mala, Steve, mark, I mean, lots of people participated, and through word of mouth, the group grew. Okay. Challenges, capacity issues. Okay. So it is very easy to find people who want to help you create goals and objectives for digital literacy, for digital skill building. Okay. It's a little harder to find people who want to help you improve access to devices and tools. So you may have a lot of like in the Maricopa County area, there are a lot of organizations that are helping people to get refurbished devices or low-cost devices and doing that kind of thing. Not necessarily the case in Tucson. Okay. And so trying to figure out how to do that, and people who are interested in that kind of thing in our area, that was kind of that was the hardest part. So finding people of interest, but connecting to those things. And I think I enjoyed the process really very much, because we learned what others in the community were doing, and we're becoming a lot less siloed in our efforts, not only in Pima County, but in our partnerships into Maricopa County, into Yavapai County, into Santa Cruz County, even over to Yuma County. Like these meetings, having conversations and participating in stuff. PJ and I had a great conversation related to middle mile stuff, because we have a middle mile grant now. And so that is the benefit of doing this kind of work. I'll stop
Great.
there.
Great, thanks, Michelle. So one thing, and we can come back to this also with all of you, but one of the things that you also had was support from your county administrator and from the Board of Supervisors. Couldn't have done it without them, right?
It started, you have to be the brave person, right? So I will say that the timing was just right for all of the things. So as the Deputy Director of Support Services for the Pima County Public Library, I served on the Urban Libraries Council's digital equity team. Okay. And we helped to create a leadership brief about what libraries should be doing to increase digital equity and inclusion, how they should be talking to their county administrators, their Board of Supervisors members, how they need to be at the table. So I took that brief and said, okay, let's make it happen. And I literally sat down and had a cup of coffee with Jan Lesher. She was the Deputy County Administrator at the time. And she was like, all right, I'm on board. Let me help you. And she carried that into her position as county administrator. We have champions on the Board of Supervisors who are very much about digital equity and inclusion, who have helped to like do resolutions and put forward that information at the Board of Supervisors meetings. But I will tell you, that is key to making sure that this process works for your community.
Right. And Nicole put a note in the chat that you are the first director for digital equity inclusion in any county in the state. So congratulations about that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's move on. PJ?
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, PJ Way for Yuma County. Digital equity and inclusion is a topic that I've been looking at for a number of years. And actually, I tried creating some models based on Pima County's efforts. So, and my role at Yuma County is the broadband program manager. So a lot of what Michelle said, Michelle, it sounds like, you know, I could have just said ditto and been done with it, because I think those are all the key points. I think the good things really, one, like you said, Steve, it's going to start with sharing the vision and what wants to be accomplished with the Board of Supervisors, with the administration, getting them to have those conversations and understand why they're important. That has been a key thing at Yuma County. I have been very blessed to have great board members and great administration that's actually supported all the efforts, given the allowances to support this from a budgetary standpoint, looking at how they can make sure they're preparing properly, looking at what is coming down the road. So if there's matches, do we have those funds available? What does that look like? Partnerships are another big asset, like Michelle said. Whether that's a partnership with another county, with peers across commercial, creating those P3 partnerships. What does that look like? It's about dialogue. You have to be able to tell the story. I think a lot of what creates success in this is storytelling, not just this is the right thing to do, but actually explaining how it creates that impact, who it's impacting, and why it's important to address that impact. Some of the challenges, I think, well, actually, I'll go back to one of the good things. Is also defining what digital equity is, right? Creating definitions, creating a good list of definitions helps with that communication, because then people don't have a misinterpretation of what that means. You ask somebody arbitrarily, what is digital inclusion, or what does digital equity mean? They may have different ideas. So it's important for the county, I think, to have a concept that they share, understand, and it reflects on what the values are for the programs. So when people talk about it, everybody's saying the same thing, because it's important that they all share the same vision. Some of the challenges, I would say, capacity. Michelle, you've already said it, right? You know, it's funny, I get to use the word bandwidth limitations in terms of people resources. And that's what we face, is bandwidth problems continuously. If it's not budget, then it's people. We just don't have enough people to do the work. And many times people are wearing multiple hats. So I think it's important to be able to identify who those stakeholders are, who's able to contribute and not be overburdened, but then they have enough management of the tasks and autonomy to get the work done. Yeah, I think that's the key thing, is honestly, and then communication, not having kind of a standard. You know, it's interesting getting to talk around the state with different individuals and what they're focused on. We're all taking the same concept, but we have a different approach. I think a unified toolkit might be beneficial, kind of helping to share that conversation, so that when administrators go to CSA meetings, they're actually saying the same things too, because they
Excuse me,
understand
PJ,
the concept.
CSA for people who don't.
I'm sorry, county supervisor, the county supervisors administration meetings, they have a panel of all the administrators that get together. I'm not sure what the frequency is. I think it's monthly or bi-monthly. And they share discussions over everything from our insurance policies for the counties to digital equity and inclusion, right? To broadband. What does that mean? And trying to understand how the challenge process works. Many of them don't necessarily have a common definition presented to them, because I said I feel blessed about the county because they've allowed me to come in here and do this work. Not every county has somebody like Michelle or Joy or myself that can kind of lead this. And it's left at the devices of people that are trying to figure this out and struggle a little bit. So a toolkit would be remarkable. If we could come up with a standard form of definitions, the help guide those conversations inside of counties would be beneficial. That's why, Steve, putting this together today, when you asked me, I said, yeah, absolutely. If I share ideas and that helps others, then I'm more than happy to do that anytime. So I think that's kind of the high level mark of successes and challenges, things to keep in mind from my perspective.
So one thing about both PJ and Michelle is that you guys had some money to be able to, and quote, staff to be able to do this, where many counties, particularly a lot of the small counties, don't have anybody to do that.
Oh, I'm gonna throw something out there. I did this on top of my job as the Deputy Director of Support Services for the Public Library. Okay,
yes,
so this was not, yes, was there money? It was my salary. Okay, and I still had to do my library work. So you see, Corey feels my pain. Okay, so, and I had to, as we were going through that process, champion the cause that this was an important enough effort to not be just seen as a library program. Okay, and that is really vital. Okay, because while the library is phenomenal, you will never hear me say a bad thing about the library ever. They are a tremendous community partner, and they should be included in any grant that you write. You should be working with the library. Okay, but people don't see it the same. Oh, that's just the library doing that. Oh, that's just the library doing that. No, it needs to be your counties doing it. It needs to be your cities doing it for it to mean something to people. That's just what I found.
We don't have any other library advocates on this call.
Well, I would just like to add to that, Michelle. You know, I think that goes back to how do you have the conversation? I think I don't know that I don't have an answer for you. I mean, like I said, I've been fortunate, but not every county or every county board member or administrator necessarily wants to support this, right? Because again, it's lack of definition, lack of understanding. So it can create a very tough work environment if you don't have the right people that are supporting you with when you're sharing that knowledge to try and bring to the. I mean, Michelle, I think you're right. One of the things is to talk to get community members involved. But if you don't have a marketing person to reach out to the community, if you don't have somebody that's willing to put that on the website, if you have administrators that are saying, no, we don't have any resources for that, you know, do what you can, it's going to be a very, very tough climb. And even then, even with the support, it's still a tough climb. So it really is, it's not easy. And part of the, you know, I got a couple other challenges, but they're probably side notes. I'm just trying to hit the high level stuff.
Well, that's okay if you want to do that, and then we're going to go on to Joy, and then we're going to open it up to questions and additional comments and all of that sort of thing. So
I think if I were to bring up one question or one thing regarding challenges is county processes. County processes, we all follow under the same legislative requirements, the same state requirements, and when we have timing of things, so by the time. It's important to be forward thinking, because by being forward thinking and not having just these meetings, but knowing what's actually potentially coming down the road in 5 or 6 months is important to start the conversations right then before they happen, because people will start, they're not going to really have knowledge of it until it starts making news, right? Until they start hearing another county is doing it. Those administrators, and it's not a knock on administrators, it's just a process. We all work in that world. Where if something happens to a counterpart of mine in another county, I'm like, oh, wait, I never knew that. Well, how did I not know that? How was I not trying to stay ahead of it, if that was possible anyways? And the reason I bring that up is our processes inside of counties have such timelines, because if let's say tomorrow we had a 90-day window to do something, and we had to go to our county board to get approval to do that. I have to have my stuff presented for the board by Monday of next week. If I don't, it's not going on for next month at all.
I don't know.
So what do I do? Right? I've already shot myself by 30+ days, because I didn't know until the day that it was required to be submitted to the board, or the day after it was submitted to the board. That pushes us out those 40 days. But then by the time you get the approval to pursue something, that a budget has been allocated, you now have to go get 3 quotes. You get 3 quotes on something, it's going to go back to the board. Your 90 days is almost up. You haven't even done anything yet. That's just the process that we're stuck to. So how do we, I think that's a challenge that a pain point that we're all going to face. So it's important to try and stay ahead of it. And I think, I'm sure that probably Joy, you may have something on that. Michelle, you may have. I know for me, that's been an experience I've had where I get to do all the due diligence, and it's like, well, we need 3 quotes. Well, now you got to go back to the drawing board, go get 2 more quotes, and explain to 2 people that I've spent the next 3 days with to try and get a quote from them. And it's just, it's so Michelle, that's why it's hard, right? Because when you're balancing a second thing, meanwhile, there's other projects you have to pay attention to, there's other teams you have to pay attention to, you have to report back to the board. It's never ending cycle, and to keep them all in order and on task, and then to have a request that comes down that you have a deadline of this, sometimes it's just not manageable. So speaking up early is better than waiting till the last minute. Being able to say, hey, look, we're not going to make this. Well, it's 90 days out. Okay, well, let me give you the timeline. Don't be afraid to talk to your administrators. Don't be afraid to talk to the policymakers, because otherwise it's on us for remaining silent.
Okay, let's move on to Joy, and then we'll open it up for additional comments and questions and so forth. There's been a lot of good input into the chat, and so we'll come back to some of those comments and questions in just a little bit. But Joy, you're on.
Again, thank you, Steve, for inviting me to join. I would have to say my 100% birthplace into broadband and internet was on AZBSN, and the folks were so kind to me. I'm a classroom teacher. I don't know anything about broadband, so Steve was very kind in helping me along to figure out what needed to be done along the way.
Just a spasm.
And really quickly, before I talk about some wins and challenges in Apache County, I just wanted to tell Aaron and Kelly and Sandeep, they came to Apache County to do their digital equity tour, and we appreciate them coming to Apache County. It was a great experience. Aaron, you mentioned that you were going to Bisbee tomorrow. I prematurely put in the chat. I hit the return button a little bit too soon, but there's an entity called CORI, the Center on Rural Innovation. They're out of Vermont in the east, and I traveled back there about 1.5 years ago, and they are a phenomenal group, and they do wonderful things to build technology ecosystems in rural America. And I believe they have a project going on in Bisbee. I looked it up on their site when you first mentioned you were going to Bisbee, and I can't find anything on their website about it, but I did hear that there's a project in Bisbee. I would love to know what's going on, if there's anything moving with that. Aaron or Kelly, when you come back, I'll email you and see if you found anything out. They would be a huge digital equity builder in Cochise County and anywhere in Arizona. So if you have the opportunity to ask about that, just let me know. Anyway, Apache County is what we call not just a rural county, but a frontier. We have 6.4 people per square mile in Apache County. 80% of the county is tribal, with the Navajo Nation, a slight sliver of the Apache tribe. So the dynamics of our county working with tribes and non-tribal lands is difficult. It's a little tricky sometimes to make sure we're meeting all the needs. But our big win, first off, was E-rate. And I know that Mala and Michelle, those of you who have any sort of E-rate fiber in your county, that was a huge deal. That was a backbone that was created back in 2018. And without that, I don't know where Apache County would be. The other big win was finding community broadband advocates. Karen Ziegler sits on that team, also John Lucas. They are just huge. That team is huge to Apache County. We were fortunate enough to contract with Apache County. Karen wrote our grant for NTIA and then our grant for the ABDG. And I, again, being a political head, it helped me a lot being able to just, I didn't have any administration that I had to ask permission to. I just went and did it because of that. And so I worked really closely with Jeff Sabaka and the ACA in being able to get the ABDG. And that was a huge win for Apache County. So we're very fortunate. Thank you, ACA, for that, and Sandeep for your continued work on that. Moving into BEAD and the equity component, I feel like Apache County still has some work to do on the equity component, some things that we need. Because we're a coal community transition, both Salt River Project and Tucson Electric Power, they have some vested interest in helping the community as they phase out, because they are coal-fired plants that will be leaving. We have been able to work very closely with them. They have been a huge win in some instances, even though they're leaving their money, their dollars towards matching funds and transitioning the community to be sustainable after their tax dollars are gone and the workforce development. So we have a lot of work to do with those two power plants on the equity component for technology, but we're working with it, and we're gaining some successes. Some challenges that we have, again, just like Michelle and Philip said, there's just not enough people to do the job. We don't have any money earmarked for a digital equity plan in Apache County. It comes out of my budget. Whatever I choose to go do with it is what I deal with. So that, again, that's a little bit of a difficult thing. As far as communication, I agree with both, again, Michelle and Philip. I have a good relationship with our Board of Supervisors, and because it's a rural community, there's only 3 of them. I have a great relationship with all 3 of them, and they're willing to meet with a special session if I ever needed something, besides waiting that whole month of things, and they're great about that. And I again, just the success of partnering with CBA has been our biggest win so far in the county, and those ACA dollars that are flowing in are going to help the county survive. So that's some stuff that we do in Apache County.
Okay, so great, good start for this conversation today. So one of the things, and I think Karen, you put this in the chat, and which we've pretty much heard from everybody, is that champion. Got to have that champion in the community to take the lead. And in many cases, as you guys said, if you don't have money, you just figured out how you could get it done and get the ball rolling. And so, first of all, kudos to you all for the work that you've done with little or no money and so forth. So I think that's really a great thing. So what other thoughts or comments do you guys have? And I'm going to open it up to other people. There's been a lot of good stuff going on in the chat here. Anything else? I take it that's a no. Well, let's take a look at so those of you on the call, anybody have any questions? You may have put something in the chat, but anything that you want to add or questions that you have or thoughts?
Yeah, I had a question earlier for PJ. I know you're doing a lot of coordination with all sorts of players there, and I was wondering how that work is finding its way into the county's overall strategic plans or any formalized planning processes if they're talking about broadband and digital equity there.
Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate that. And look, make sure I understand the question correctly. So the question is really around, are we looking to put this into our bigger plan inside of the county? Is that okay? Good question. So actually the planning session is coming up. I think next year is when they have their next cycle for developing the next 5-year plan. So this is part of that conversation I've had with the administrator. So we're just having the discussion about how do we include this, where does it belong, and how do we get there? It's interesting because I really like what PEMA has done, and I've been an advocate for that in the state of Arizona. Even when I was with Coconino County, that we needed to have a digital equity and inclusion task force or some kind of starting ground source of engagement. I've been very fortunate also to be engaged with some of our local community members, everything from our economic development teams and other inclusion teams, seeing if I can't get this also kind of into that conversation where they can help lead that if the county cannot. Because I don't know that this has to be a county-driven effort specifically. If the county doesn't have the resource, it's something that could be assembled by other entities, and then the county can support that as well. Okay. I hope that answers the question, Nicole.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So one thing, so Joy, you certainly have been a champion, but you also have another champion in your community. Corey, I know you're there. You want to chime in?
Sorry, I was writing an email. What am I chiming in on?
Well, you just want to talk about, you've been very active up there, and so you want to just add any thoughts, comments? Wanted to give you some recognition.
Oh, I appreciate that. And yes, to answer your question, we've been doing a lot. I am in a similar position as Michelle was, both being county librarian and running this project. So this morning I've been dealing with community anchor institutions, speed tests, looking at ISP rebuttals that I'm anticipating having to respond to. But one of the things that's been really helpful with us is I put together 2 teams, well, 3 teams really. We have our ARPA broadband team, we have our BEAD infrastructure team, which is countywide, including all the municipalities. And we're putting together a digital equity team that's going to start meeting in June. And I am very happy to say many of the people who are experts in digital equity on this call will be participating in our kickoff meeting, including Aaron, Michelle, and Nicole. So I'm really pleased all of you have agreed to help us with that digital equity kickoff. So one of the things that we're discovering is if you've done any ARPA awards that's been helpful with us, is one of our ISPs may be submitting a challenge saying that they're serving a BEAD area without realizing we've already awarded ARPA funds to that area. So we're going to put in a PSA challenge possibly to help with that. So all the moving parts with all the different programs and how they all fit in together and which maps you can use for which program, it's all been very it's very fun and exciting actually. But it's just great to help out, and we're really moving on with ARPA. I feel like we're playing catch up with BEAD, but we're definitely doing what we can. And one thing I would mention too is that we've been including Mary Knight and Coconino in every single meeting we have. So we've been working pretty closely with Coconino to make sure we're aligned, since we're having a lot of the same issues across both our counties.
Okay, thank you, Corey. So
Thank you.
anybody else? Paul, I think you had some comments in the chat. Do you want to? I know you're doing some work in this space.
Yeah, mostly a couple of things. One, it's great to hear Joy mention all the different stakeholders, as well as the ability to have a meeting. And I think that's actually one of the powerful things for a rural community, is that they can bring people together a lot quicker than some of the urbans, or some of the larger groups that have specific timelines for agendas of meetings. And, you know, sometimes that can throw you out up to 3 months, depending on the size of your city. But identifying all the key stakeholders and actually making sure they're all connected and that they know that their work is connected is actually one of a critical thing, because many people forget about that. They think that they don't have a big role to play, but the trouble is sometimes, yes, their role is not big, but they're this little cog, and you take out that little cog out of the whole system and the system doesn't work. So everyone who comes into it. I also posted in the chat a couple of examples of cities that are bringing forward digital equity or broadband developments and looking at putting it in their strategic plan or have done that. So that's some of the work that I'm doing as part of my dissertation.
Okay, thank you, Paul. So one of the things that we've heard from several people, and as I started working on this, is the challenge for many small rural communities who don't have any kind of support. There's no staff. In many cases, their IT director is the football coach, right? And so there's a real challenge. They don't have funding to hire consultants. They don't have staff to lead this, even though there's people who want to be champions. It's a real challenge in those communities. It's also easier in some respects because it's a small community. But I don't know if anybody wants to comment about that.
Steve, I want to chime in just real quick about something.
Sure.
Because Pima County does have the capacity, all right, no, don't get me wrong, I've had to fight for everything that we do, okay, you know, and that kind of stuff, but my goal is to be a good neighbor. What we're doing in Pima County, we're doing so that we benefit Santa Cruz County, Cochise County, Pinal County, so that we're working together. We're working with people in Maricopa County to make sure our mapping looks similar and it's got the similar data, so that when people are searching for information, they're getting the same information that is regardless of the source they're going to. So I think it's incumbent upon those that do have to help those that do not. Okay. And so that is my goal. That's why we have the dashboard that shares as much demographic information information as possible about Pima County. Community helping organizations can see all of that information, use it to search for funding. Our municipalities are working with us. And I want to say, internet service providers have been at our table from the start of what we've been doing. Okay, so that we help them as well. They understand the good PR that comes from working with us. Okay, and eventually they end up getting customers out of the deal. So it's important to really involve everybody. But Pima County is here to help those around them.
You know,
I want to add some. Oh,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Joy. No, go,
I
Joy.
just want to add to what Michelle was saying about the municipalities in our county. Because of the big win with the ABDG from Arizona Commerce Authority, two of the bigger one, City of St. John's and the town of Eager, they were able to get a congressional allocation from Senator Kelly. And because the county had already contracted with CBA, Community Broadband Advocates, they needed help getting through that. There's still a lot of protocol and requirements that they have in order to fit that. So they didn't know what to do. They were struggling. And so Karen and the CBA team, they stepped in, they were able to help. But again, the cities and the towns, they didn't have the money, they didn't have the person to take care of that. So it was crucial that CBA was there to pull them up and help them through that. And again, having a trusted carrier that's also in the community, again, I'm mentioning E-Rate, having carriers who will be able to help kind of fight through some of the things that we're dealing with RDOF and that kind of stuff. So it was a big win for both of those municipalities to be able to lean on the county and have CBA come in and help them. That was a big win for those two communities. And they're small, they're just tiny little towns.
So would there be some benefit to have an ongoing roundtable of some kind where all you guys who are working on these county plans, I mean, obviously it sounds like you guys have been kind of talking to each other and so forth, but is there any benefit to having some kind of even if it meets quarterly or whatever, to share, challenges, best practices, et cetera?
I like the thought, Steve. I think for the sake of bandwidth conversation again, that's one of those challenges, right? But I do think it's helpful for us to at least be able to know that we have an open dialogue. And if there's that opportunity to have a roundtable, even if it's ad hoc, maybe it's something that if you wouldn't mind facilitating, if we come back to you and say, hey, Steve, I was talking to Michelle, or I was talking to Navajo County, and we would really think that we have some ideas. We'd like to get some feedback from other counties. Maybe there's that opportunity. Because I'm with Joy and Michelle that I'm always open to getting emails and calls and having the conversation, discussing what we can do. I mean, Karen has been a great resource, been very valuable also in providing me some thoughts and suggestions on things when I get stuck. So it's helpful to have each other as resources. I know the challenge that we're up against is usually time and money, and people.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, and if I can just add, I'm just so happy to hear the discussion from Michelle and Joy and PJ. And although we did contract with Pima County and Apache County, we didn't contract with Yuma County and some of the other counties. And I am always available, to talk through some ideas. My conversations with you all are free. I mean, this is something that I'm very passionate about, when I was at, the state. So just because you don't have money for a consultant doesn't mean you can't reach out and, have conversations, get some ideas. So my email and my phone number I'll post it all over AZBSN. So I'm happy to have the conversation.
So Karen, just, you want to just tell people that, the work that you do, as a consultant, you've worked with a lot of communities.
Sure, and I'm just about to drop, but I just wanted to add that in there. I have another call that I'll have to jump on, but my name is Karen Ziegler. I am retired from the state of Arizona after 30 years and contracted back with the Department of Administration, started the Rural Broadband Initiative. And with a lot of people that are on this call, we all developed the the updated 2018 broadband strategic plan. And that has been carried forward through ACA and their work today. So right now I'm consulting. I have a consulting firm, Karen Ziegler Consulting, and I also partner with John Lucas at Community Broadband Advocates to provide consulting services for a variety of things, broadband, grants management, financial consulting. My focus is mainly on rural, communities and trying to help rural communities with those resources that Michelle and Joy and PJ all say that they're lacking. They just don't have the capacity, that extra bandwidth to be able to do some of this work.
Great, thank you, Karen. You've been a great leader and support for a long time, and been a great sponsor for us, which I greatly appreciate.
I believe in AZBSN, and I think Joy said it right at the start, is that, that's where she got involved and was able to, get the resources that she needs. This group is fantastic. It brings people together from all different, counties and ISPs, and, we talk about a variety of different things. I'm a very strong supporter, and I don't want to see this group go away, so.
Great, thank you, Karen, appreciate that. Matthew, if I can put you on the spot, do you have any thoughts that you might want to talk about in terms of USDA and the work that you're doing and how this may relate to the conversation today?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll give it a try. I just happen to be looking through the Southeast Arizona comprehensive economic development strategy.
Excuse me, Matthew, can you introduce yourself real quickly?
Oh, yeah, sure. Matthew Suchodolski. I serve as the general field representative on behalf of the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Rural Utility Service specific to telecom. Rather new to this group. So if that introduction hasn't been made before, thank you, Steve, for keying me into that. I just find it very interesting that you're all, really focused on the rural underserved areas. Please keep apprised as to what USDA Rural Utility Services offering these days. I understand the Broadband Technical Assistance Program will be opening up soon. Exactly when, I don't know, but I would advise folks to kindly keep a lookout for that. That may
Can you
be
explain that a little bit, please, Matthew?
Pardon me?
Can you explain the technical assistance?
Yeah, broadband technical assistance. It's about capacity building, exploring new ideas per se. Helping those communities, those champions, those boosters. Do just that. Build capacity. Receive technical assistance, whether it's from peer organizations or through industry.
Great. Thank you, Matthew. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, seeing I am new here, and with my previous profession, I'd be certainly willing to make a call to that group, Corey, if this group is interested in a presentation. Taking a little bit of risk there, but I've worked with them in a previous capacity.
Great. Thank you, Matthew. Any questions for Matthew? So we're getting close to wrapping up here. First of all, I want to thank our three presenters today. You guys did a great job. You did exactly what I wanted you to do. And again, we wanted to focus on, the process and the good, bad, and ugly of trying to get things happening in a county. Any closing remarks that you guys have?
I just want to say thanks again, Steve. Like Karen said earlier, this group right here is just a really big deal. I wouldn't have known where to go. I would have never met Karen. I would have never known Jeff Sabaka from the ACA and how to do anything. So again, I appreciate so much what you do and what everybody here brings to the table. It's really a great group.
Great, thank you, Joy. Any other closing comments, thoughts? Aaron, you want to add anything?
I mean, I'll always talk, but no, I think this is really, this has been wonderful. And I mean, I have to say too, I fully support everyone's comments about this being a great group. You know, I mean, both of the major cohorts or coalitions in our state are just super, super important for networking. You know, I joked when I moved over to the ACA that really all that was changing was my email address, because it was these groups that, you know, connected us to all of the important players in the state. So same. And thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anything else before we end for today? So I'm hoping that probably in 2 weeks we're going to do a session similar to this on healthcare, and we're not going to do a whole broad healthcare issue, but healthcare as it relates to telemedicine and broadband and so forth. So I'm working on putting that panel together. And if there's no other comments, then I think we are basically done for today.
I just want to say thank you again, Steve. Thanks for putting this on. Joy, it was good being up here with you. Michelle, same thing. I appreciate being able to slip here and talk. Just kind of walk through this. So I appreciate it. Thank you. And anybody else out there that if you have any questions, anything I can try and help with, please don't hesitate to let me know.
Okay.
Ditto. I put my contact stuff in the chat.
Okay. So, and of course, you know, I always send out the chat to everybody, hopefully within a couple of days, along with the recording and transcript and everything. And so I'm working on trying to get that done. I don't always get to do a whole summary, but at least try to get that done as quickly as possible. So again, I think in a couple of weeks, we're going to do healthcare, and then probably the week after, so it gives me some time to get a panel together that I want to talk about municipal networks. Just like we heard today, there's good, bad, and ugly. There's challenges, there's issues and resources and all kinds of stuff. So that may actually be a 2-session instead of just a 1 session. So let me ask about, so how did this work today? Is this a good format? Was it useful? What are your thoughts?
Good, Steve.
Okay. Okay. Well, if not,
good conversations as usual.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. If not, I believe we are done for today.